The world didn't erupt into war with an explosion. It began with silence, seconds before the sky over Poland split open. September 1st, 1939. The day Europe caught fire. The air, thick with morning fog, promised another quiet dawn over the Polish countryside. But this was not a day for peace. It was the first day of the Second World War. On the horizon, dark silhouettes grew larger, their shapes becoming terrifyingly clear. They were not birds. They were the harbingers of a new kind of warfare come to tear the sky apart. The ground trembled. The sound was not thunder, it was engines. Hundreds of them. A deep mechanical roar that vibrated through the earth and into the very bones of those who heard it. The German war machine had arrived. Panzers, symbols of a terrifying new speed, kicked up clouds of dust as they tore across the open fields, their tracks chewing up the peaceful landscape. Behind them marched columns of soldiers, a gray tide of disciplined force, moving with a chilling, unstoppable purpose. This wasn't just an army crossing a border, it was a predator beginning its hunt. The sound alone was an act of terror, a promise of the devastation to come. Blitzkrieg. Lightning war. It wasn't a strategy, it was a storm. Speed, shock, terror from the sky. The scream of the Stuka dive bombers, equipped with sirens designed to induce panic, became the soundtrack to Poland's nightmare. They plunged from the heavens, delivering destruction with pinpoint accuracy. On the ground, tanks didn't wait for infantry, and infantry didn't wait for artillery. They moved as one, a coordinated symphony of chaos, punching through defensive lines before they could even form. Germany did not simply invade Poland. It swallowed it whole, But in the face of this onslaught, there was defiance. At Westerplatte, a small peninsula near Danzig, fewer than 200 Polish soldiers stood their ground against the might of the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein. The pre-dreadnought's massive guns roared, shelling the small garrison relentlessly. They were expected to fall in hours, a mere footnote in a swift German victory. Instead, they held for 7 days. 7 days of impossible courage, a symbol of a nation's refusal to break. Trapped in their bunkers, facing overwhelming firepower, these soldiers fought back, sending a clear message. Poland would not surrender its spirit, even when facing certain doom. City after city fell. Warsaw, the proud capital, was encircled and relentlessly bombed. Fires raged through its streets, turning historic buildings to rubble and homes to ash. Amidst the chaos, civilians ran for cover, their faces etched with shock and fear, while soldiers, their own futures uncertain, helped guide children to safety. Yet Poland refused to surrender, not because it hoped to win a battle it was already losing, but because it refused to vanish from the map. Every act of resistance, every day the government refused to capitulate, was a declaration that the Polish nation was more than just territory. It was an idea, and an idea cannot be conquered by bombs alone. While Poland bled, fighting for its very existence in the West, another giant watched from across its eastern border. The Soviet Union. Silent, waiting. To the world, it projected an image of neutrality, its leaders making calm pronouncements while its armies gathered. Along the vast, forested frontier, Soviet border guards stood idle, and tank crews waited by their machines. Through binoculars, Red Army officers observed the carnage unfolding just miles away. This was not the quiet of a peaceful neighbor. It was the predatory stillness of a beast of prey, biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike a weakened and distracted victim. But this was no spontaneous decision. A secret had already been signed, a deal made in the shadows that sealed Poland's fate, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Officially, it was a non-aggression treaty between two opposing ideologies, but hidden within its clauses was a clandestine protocol. It was a cynical, cold-blooded agreement between two tyrants. They agreed to divide the spoils of a nation that was still, at that moment, free and independent. On September 17th, the other shoe dropped. While the Polish army was throwing everything it had against the German invasion in the west, its soldiers exhausted but still fighting, the Soviets attacked from the east. No declaration of war, no warning, no honor. Soviet tanks rolled across bridges and pushed through the countryside, meeting a Polish defense that was already stretched to its breaking point. For the Polish soldiers on the Eastern Front, it was a moment of utter disbelief and despair. The neighbor they had hoped might remain neutral or even offer aid had just become their second invader. The trap had been sprung. Imagine fighting an enemy you can see, a powerful force coming at you head-on. You brace for the impact, you fight with everything you have. Now imagine, in the midst of that desperate struggle, being stabbed in the back by another power you believed was, if not a friend, at least not an enemy. This was Poland's reality. Surrounded, betrayed, and fighting a war on two fronts against the two most powerful military machines in Europe. Animated maps from the time show the grim reality. German forces pushing relentlessly from the west, Soviet armies flooding in from the east, and the beleaguered Polish units caught in a fatal pincer collapsing inward. The fight was over. And where were Poland's allies? Britain and France, bound by treaty to defend Polish sovereignty, declared war on Germany. Speeches were made in parliaments and condemnations were issued. But these were just words. No armies were sent. No planes flew to Poland's aid. No meaningful military action was taken to relieve the pressure. While politicians in London and Paris debated strategy, Warsaw burned. Poland bled alone. The first victim of a global conflict, sacrificed on the altar of political hesitation. This period became known as the Phony War in the West. But for Poland, the war was devastatingly real. But a nation is more than its government or its army. Poland did not die. Its spirit went underground. In defiance of the occupation, secret schools were organized to teach Polish history and culture, forbidden by the invaders. Clandestine newspapers were printed and distributed in secret, keeping the flame of hope alive. A powerful resistance movement, the Home Army, formed to carry on the fight through sabotage and intelligence gathering, and thousands of Polish soldiers and pilots who escaped the fall of their country made their way to Britain. These pilots, seasoned and fiercely motivated, would soon play a crucial role in the Battle of Britain, helping to save the very ally that had been unable to save them. Two giants crushed Poland, but history is filled with bitter irony. Soon, those giants, those partners in crime, would turn on each other. In 1941, Hitler, betraying his own pact, launched a surprise invasion of the Soviet Union. The predators became enemies. The Eastern Front became the largest and bloodiest theater of war in human history. And Poland? Once again, it found itself caught in the middle, a battlefield for two dueling empires, its people suffering under successive waves of brutality. The pact that had destroyed Poland ultimately led to a cataclysm that would consume its architects. History does not just tell us what happened, it warns us what can happen again. The story of Poland in 1939 is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of tyranny, betrayal, and indifference. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe for more chapters from our shared past.